Imagine a king whose wealth was so immense that silver was considered as common as stones in the streets of his capital. Picture a ruler who didn't just command men, but, as the darker legends whisper, held the very legions of the unseen world under his seal. This is King Solomon, a figure who stands in the hallways of history like a towering golden colossus whose fame stretches across holy books, ancient myths, and 3,000 years of human obsession. He is the architect of the Great Temple, the ultimate judge of impossible riddles, and the monarch whose riches were so vast that poets have spent lifetimes trying to capture the mere shadow of his glory. His name alone evokes a world of splendor, secrets, and treasures buried so deep that the earth itself seems to hold its breath. But here is the chilling reality that keeps archaeologists awake in the dead of the night. If Solomon was so great, why has he vanished? If his wisdom was unmatched, and his empire was the envy of the ancient world, why does the ground refuse to give him up? Wait a second. If you're a fan of lost civilizations and the hidden secrets of our past, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon. We're diving deep into history's greatest mysteries, and you won't want to miss what we uncover next. And hey, if you're enjoying this journey so far, drop a like on this video. It really helps the channel reach more history hunters like you. The mystery begins with a paradox. For centuries, the human imagination has been fueled by the dream of a hidden room, perhaps tucked away inside a forgotten mountain or deep beneath the shifting sands, filled with the gold of King Solomon's tomb. We expect to find a hall of wonders, a sealed space that, when opened, would blind the world with its brilliance. Yet, when the heavy stones of Jerusalem are finally moved and the dust of millennia is cleared away, what appears is often not gold, but something far more controversial and unsettling. The question of where Solomon rested after his lifetime of rule draws curiosity like a powerful magnet. We are naturally pulled toward the untold and the ancient, especially when a name as heavy as Solomon is attached to it. His legend tells of caravans and massive fleets returning from exotic, distant lands like Ophir, laden with ivory, rare woods, and enough gold to make the world shimmer. There is even some physical evidence to support these tales. Archaeologists have found inscribed pottery shards near ancient harbors, suggesting that a long-distance network of gold trade really did exist in that era. But despite the pottery, the trade routes, and the stories of global power, when it comes to the one thing everyone is searching for, the final resting place of the king, the record goes dead silent. Archaeologists have been meticulously combing through the ancient lands of Judah and Israel for over a century. They have sifted through the dirt of centuries, uncovering city walls, pottery, royal seals, and the remnants of busy ancient markets. They have found the bones of the common people and the defensive structures that protected the land during the 10th century BCE, the very time Solomon is said to have reigned. But not a single tomb has ever been verified as his. There is no sealed chamber, no stone engraved with his name, not even a simple inscription in the archaeological layers that says, "Here lies the king." This creates a striking, almost haunting contrast. On one hand, we have the tales of a ruler so powerful that entire kingdoms sent him tribute. On the other hand, the physical evidence left behind is muted, fragmentary, and frustratingly open to interpretation. It leads us to a central, uncomfortable tension. Was Solomon as wealthy and wise as the Bible proclaims? Or has time simply erased him from the map? Or perhaps, is the tomb hiding somewhere so clever, so deep, that we haven't even begun to look in the right place? To understand this, we have to look at Jerusalem itself. This isn't just a city, it's a living museum, layered in blood, prayer, and memory. Beneath the dusty paths, where modern tourists walk, lie centuries of human life and death. But digging here isn't like digging anywhere else in the world. In Jerusalem, archaeology is shaped by the volatile intersection of rock, soil, politics, and religion. To move a stone is to risk an international incident. To dig a hole is to disturb a holy site. One of the most profound places where we see this struggle is the Silwan Necropolis. Perched on the slopes of the Kidron Valley, just outside the oldest part of the city, these rock-cut tombs stand like silent stone sentinels. These aren't just holes in the dirt. They are grand, carefully shaped rooms carved directly into the limestone cliffside. They date back to the Iron Age, a time when the Kingdom of Judah was at its peak. When you look at these tombs, you see the effort of a society obsessed with honoring its elite. You see straight, gabled ceilings and stone benches where the bodies of the high-status dead once lay. These were the final homes of the officials, the nobles, and the keepers of the kingdom. Some even bear Hebrew inscriptions that connect them to specific ancient identities. But even here, among the greatest nobles of the era, Solomon is missing. Archaeologists study these caves to understand how people honored their ancestors, but the King of Kings is nowhere to be found. It forces us to ask, is the search for Solomon's tomb about more than just finding gold? Is it actually a search for meaning, for memory, and for the whisper of history that still calls to us through the limestone walls? As we move deeper into the tunnels and the forgotten quarries of the city, we begin to realize that Jerusalem does not give up its secrets easily. It demands patience, respect, and a willingness to look past the legends and into the cold, hard reality of the stone. Before we can hope to find the true resting place of a king, we must first learn how to read the stones of Jerusalem, which often tell stories tangled with as much legend as truth. Among the most breathtaking ancient sites in the city is a location known as the Tombs of the Kings. The name itself is a heavy anchor in the sea of history, instantly evoking images of royal chambers, golden sarcophagi, and the echoes of a powerful lineage resting in grand, silent halls beneath the earth. However, as we peel back the layers of time, we find that a name alone does not make a king's grave. Located in East Jerusalem, not far from the old city walls, this site is visually massive. A wide stone facade rises from the rocky ground, carved into the bedrock with incredible strength and precision. A broad staircase once led visitors down into a complex of rooms and corridors carved deep into the earth. The sheer scale and skilled craftsmanship of the structure make it easy, almost too easy, to imagine that the powerful rulers of Judah must lie within. This is where the drift between reality and legend begins. When early explorers first examined these rock-cut tombs in the mid-19th century, they were so struck by the grandeur of the stonework that they assumed these must be the final resting places of the biblical kings. To these early visitors, the largest and most impressive tombs deserved the richest and most famous occupants. The name Tombs of the Kings stuck because it felt right to the human spirit, even if there was no proof to back it up. Modern archaeology has since looked closer, and the verdict is starkly different. Detailed research into the design, decorations, and artifacts shows that this complex likely belonged to Queen Helena of Adiabene, who lived in the early 1st century of the Common Era, hundreds of years after Solomon's time. The architecture, which includes design elements from the Second Temple period, simply does not match the era of the ancient kings. Experts now reject the idea that these caves hold the remains of monarchs like David or Solomon. There is no direct evidence linking this site to the line of Judah's ancient kings. The power of public memory. Jerusalem is crowded with such places, sites where names carry more myth than scientific proof. These labels have been passed down for generations, shaped by the hopes and imaginations of those seeking a connection to a glorious past. Consider Solomon's stables. This vast underground space beneath the city's ancient platform was once thought to be where the king kept his legendary horses. Despite there being no historical basis for this link, the name persists as a reflection of how easily folklore can become part of a landscape's identity. The same can be said for Solomon's quarries, a series of immense chambers where stone was once cut from the earth. Because of its scale, people through the ages connected it to the building of the Great Temple. But again, this connection comes from popular tradition, not verified evidence that Solomon ever commanded work there. Archaeological study demands something stronger than tradition. It requires physical evidence, material analysis, and established dates. When a site seems ancient and grand, it is natural for storytellers to connect it to famous figures. But science is the tool we use to separate fascinating history from exciting fiction. If we strip away the movies and the legends of hidden rooms sparkling with gold and scrolls of lost wisdom, what does a real tomb from the time of the first temple actually look like? The archaeological record from Iron Age Judah tells a story that is far more humble, human, and deeply meaningful. During the Iron Age, burial was a practical and symbolic act, typically involving rock-cut tombs meant for entire families over generations. These were not the solitary, gold-filled chambers we see in fiction. Instead, archaeologists find bone remains, simple pottery, and fragments of everyday life. The process was intimate. A body would be wrapped and laid on a stone shelf inside the tomb. After the flesh decomposed, a process taking many months, the family would return to collect the bones and place them in a stone box called an ossuary. These limestone boxes were often plain or decorated with simple lines. While they sometimes bore inscriptions to identify the deceased, many did not. They could hold the remains of adults, children, and multiple family members, representing a continuous cycle of honoring the dead. One of the most famous examples is the Talpiot tomb, uncovered by accident during construction in a modern neighborhood. Inside were 10 ossuaries, some with names common for that era. While sensationalists might try to link these to famous historical figures, the physical evidence points to a standard family burial typical of the period. For an archaeologist, the wonder of these tombs isn't hidden treasure, it's the ordinary details. Broken oil lamps, small juglets, and simple jewelry reveal more about the real ancient human experience than any myth could. These items help create a timeline of how people lived, how they cared for their loved ones, and how their cultural practices shifted over time. The contrast is clear. Iron Age tombs rarely contain gold or secret documents, but they contain the real history of people who lived in Solomon's world. This realization brings us back to our central mystery. If the tombs of the elite were so humble, then where is the king who supposedly lived in unparalleled luxury? To find the answer, we must look beyond the burial caves and into the very structures of the 10th century world. When we attempt to visualize the era of King Solomon, our minds are often flooded with images of a vast golden empire, shining palaces, and cities teeming with unprecedented wealth. This is the image handed down through centuries of sacred texts and artistic interpretations. However, when we turn to the cold, hard earth, the material record paints a far quieter and more complex scene. Archaeologists looking for the 10th century BCE, the traditional time frame of Solomon's rule, find that Canaanite cultural patterns continued without a dramatic or sudden interruption. Instead of the dazzling material remains of a massive empire, the physical evidence is often muted and fragmentary. There are no confirmed palace complexes or monumental capitals that perfectly mirror the dramatic descriptions found in later narratives. Why is there such a gap between the legend and the dirt? One reason lies in the violent history of the region. Jerusalem and its surroundings underwent repeated cycles of occupation, destruction, and rebuilding. Devastating invasions, such as those by the Babylonians, likely erased or muddled many of the older artistic and structural traces of the early monarchy. The 10th century world we find today is mostly composed of villages, small towns, and regional centers where pottery and simple city walls show continuity rather than a revolutionary imperial transformation. Clues in the clay, the fingerprints of government. Despite the lack of golden halls, the archaeological record is not entirely blank. It simply speaks in a different language, the language of administration and trade. Far from the biblical capital, researchers have found subtle hints that an organized political entity did indeed exist. At a site known as Khirbet Sumali, located east of Gaza, a team led by experts in anthropology uncovered 6 clay bullae, or seal impressions. These small pieces of clay date back to the 10th century BCE. In the ancient world, such seals were used for official correspondence and administrative activities, typically linked to an elite or governmental body. While these tiny fragments do not directly prove the existence of Solomon's specific kingdom, they provide indirect evidence that organized polities were functioning in the Levant during that era. They suggest a world that was moving toward complexity, where officials were already tracking goods and messages across the landscape. The Silver Trail, a global network. If the gold of Solomon remains a mystery, the silver of his era is much more visible. Researchers have turned their attention to ancient silver hoards found across the Levant and Phoenicia, in places like Akko, Dor, and Ein Hofes. These hoards contain hacksilver, bits of cut silver, ingots, and fragments that served as a form of currency long before the invention of regional coinage. Scientific studies, including lead isotope analysis, have revealed a startling truth. Much of this silver originated from the Western Mediterranean, possibly from Sardinia or the Iberian Peninsula. This silver was circulating in the region long before the 10th century, but its presence aligns with ancient stories of trade networks reaching into distant lands. These findings show that the Levant was a central hub in a massive, long-distance economic world where precious metals flowed across seas. Even if the gold of Ophir is hard to pin down, the silver of the West proves that the 10th century world was rich with international connections and human effort, the silent heart of the mystery. The greatest frustration for any historian or archaeologist is the Temple Mount. This is the area most closely linked by tradition to Solomon's Great Temple and royal architecture. While extensive excavations have been conducted in the surrounding city, the area directly beneath the Temple Mount itself remains virtually untouched by deep archaeological digs. Due to long-standing political and religious sensitivities, scientific examination of the ground beneath these sacred stones is restricted. This means that if monumental remains or royal burial chambers exist, they remain hidden by the weight of modern history. Until the day science is granted access to these layers, the splendid empire of Solomon will remain a world of intriguing hints rather than established facts. The wisdom of the silent. What the dead remember. Just because the earth does not yield the legendary gold of Solomon does not mean the tombs are empty of wonder. In fact, the quiet halls of ancient burial sites whisper stories that transcend the material wealth of the people resting within them. For archaeologists, every artifact, every deliberate arrangement of bone, and every carved line in the rock serves as a small key to unlocking the complex reality of how people lived, ruled, and believed thousands of years ago. In the world of ancient Judah, burial was never an afterthought. It was a deliberate and profoundly meaningful act. Families would spend generations carving their history into the limestone hillsides. These rock-cut tombs were designed with multiple chambers, allowing relatives to be gathered together in death, just as they were in life. The physical layout of these spaces reveals a strictly ordered society. Archaeologists have noted that the effort invested in these structures, ranging from simple, modest niches to grand rooms with gabled ceilings and carved benches, directly reflected the social status of the deceased and the resources of their family. By meticulously documenting these details, scientists can reconstruct the social hierarchies and family structures that defined the community during the era in which Solomon may have ruled. Even the way a body was positioned carried weight. The orientation of the remains and the subsequent handling of bones after decomposition were not random. Researchers analyze these patterns to understand how ancient communities viewed the cosmos, the afterlife, and their connection to divine forces. It is here, in the cold dark of the tomb, that we find a practical wisdom and a societal intelligence that rival any legend. Voices in the stone, the inscribed memory. Perhaps the most valuable treasures found in these subterranean chambers are the inscriptions. When they appear, carved in ancient Hebrew or Aramaic, they provide a rare and startlingly clear glimpse into the identities of the past. These texts do more than just name the dead. They reveal occupations, social roles, and deeply personal expressions of faith. Some inscriptions contain blessings or statements of belief, allowing researchers to peer directly into the spiritual worldview of the inhabitants of Judah. Interestingly, even the absence of writing is a data point for scholars. It can suggest differences in literacy rates between classes or shifts in cultural practices over time. By combining these stone records with the narratives preserved in Hebrew scripture, historians can build a bridge between the physical artifact and the historical document, bringing the world of kings, priests, and ordinary citizens back to life. Beyond the words, the grave goods provide a tactile connection to the rhythms of daily existence. In these burial sites, archaeologists find pottery and juglets. These help researchers date the site and understand local trade networks. Oil lamps. Often broken or placed strategically, these lamps suggest rituals of remembrance and the symbolic need to illuminate the journey to the afterlife. Jewelry and amulets. These modest items reflect beliefs in protection, personal identity, and status. While these objects lack the glitter of fictional treasure, they are precious because they reveal the real ancient human experience. They show us a world in motion, a society that valued its ancestors, engaged in long-distance trade, and sought to find meaning in the face of mortality. The middle of our journey, we have traveled from the golden myths of Solomon to the stark, beautiful reality of the limestone tombs. If this exploration of our hidden past is capturing your imagination, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your engagement is what allows us to keep digging deeper into these mysteries and bringing the truth to light. Join our community of history seekers. There is so much more yet to be uncovered. The archaeological tension. Science versus sensationalism. One of the greatest challenges in the search for Solomon's legacy is the constant pull of sensational interpretation. Often, ordinary discoveries are overlaid with famous names or mythic stories without the necessary evidence to support such claims. This can mislead the public, creating the illusion that a specific tomb belongs to a legendary figure when it actually reflects the common burial practices of the time. Scholars must take immense care to differentiate between what the physical evidence actually shows and what a powerful imagination might wish to see. Bones, pottery, and stone boxes are not just relics. They are data points that must be studied within their strict archaeological context. Only by placing each piece accurately within history's puzzle can we hope to see the true image of the 10th century world. As we have seen, the contrast is profound. Iron Age tombs rarely contain the gold or secret documents of our dreams, but they hold the authentic history of a real, complex society. This reality invites us to imagine not a mythic, untouchable kingdom, but a living, breathing world rich with human effort and connection. The subterranean labyrinth, tunnels of speculation. Beyond the visible stone facades and the well-documented burial caves lies a world hidden in the absolute dark, the underground network of the City of David. This area is considered the ancient heart of Jerusalem, the very place where the earliest kings are believed to have established their seat of power. Here, archaeologists operate with a level of care that borders on the sacred, moving through layers of earth that contain the remnants of houses, pottery, and the simple tools of daily life that once belonged to the subjects of the Judean monarchy. However, it is what lies beneath these domestic remains that fuels the most intense theories. Excavations have revealed a complex system of tunnels and cisterns carved deep into the solid bedrock. In the silence of these underground pathways, speculation has long run wild. Some suggest that these hidden corridors were designed to lead to secret royal chambers, where the early kings might have been buried far from the reach of grave robbers or invaders. Yet, the archaeological reality is often more functional than the legends suggest. Scientific study indicates that these tunnels were most likely engineered as sophisticated water systems or strategic defensive pathways designed to help a crowded city on a hill function during times of both peace and siege. These structures reflect the ingenuity of past builders who had to solve the life or death problem of water access in a hostile environment. While the idea of a secret royal tomb hidden in these depths remains a popular theory, it lacks the verified facts required to move from the realm of maybe to certainty. For the archaeologist, the challenge is one of context. Every object found in these depths must be meticulously recorded in relation to its surroundings to separate solid knowledge from mere guesses. It is through this patient, often frustrating work that we learn how the people of Jerusalem lived and died, and how they built their city layer by layer. The stones of Jerusalem do not give up their secrets easily. They demand a steady hand and a deep respect for the truth that lies beneath the dust. The Silver Horizon, economics of a legend. If we cannot find Solomon's body, perhaps we can find his shadow in the massive economic networks described in ancient narratives. The stories of Solomon's wealth are inseparable from the legendary lands of Ophir, a place of distant shores and unimaginable riches. These narratives describe great fleets and caravans returning to the Levant, laden with a dazzling array of goods: ivory, precious woods, rare materials, and, most importantly, gold. While the location of Ophir itself remains a mystery, archaeology has provided small, tantalizing slivers of evidence that such trade was indeed possible. Inscribed pottery shards discovered near ancient harbors suggest that a long-distance network of exchange was active during this era. These findings provide a real-world context for the biblical accounts of vast wealth flowing into the kingdom. Even more compelling is the evidence found in silver hoards. Across the Levant and Phoenicia, in sites like Akko, Dor, and Teleson, archaeologists have uncovered collections of hacksilver, cut pieces, ingots, and fragments that functioned as a precursor to formal coinage. Advanced scientific techniques specifically lead isotope studies, have traced the origin of this silver to sources far in the western Mediterranean, including Sardinia and the Iberian Peninsula. This distribution of precious metal aligns with the idea that the Levant was a central hub in a global economic world long before the modern era. These silver hoards prove that the 10th century BCE was not a world of isolated villages, but a complex society with organized elites and trade connections that spanned entire seas. While these findings do not name Solomon specifically, they show that the economic engine required to build a kingdom of legendary wealth was very much in operation. The archaeological record may be less dramatic than a room full of gold, but it reveals a lived world rich with human effort, shifting local powers, and a constant flow of silver that connected Jerusalem to the furthest reaches of the known world. The Forbidden Foundation, silence beneath the mount. The search for King Solomon eventually leads every explorer to a wall, not just a wall of stone, but a wall of politics, religion, and modern complexity. Jerusalem is a city layered in history, where beneath every dusty path and ancient stone lie centuries of human memory, life, and death. However, archaeology here is never a simple matter of digging into the earth. It is a delicate dance around modern buildings, living communities, and sites that are considered sacred by millions. The most profound example of this tension is the Temple Mount. In tradition, this is the epicenter of Solomon's glory, the site of the Great Temple and perhaps the royal palace itself. Yet, while the surrounding city has been meticulously excavated, the area directly beneath the Temple Mount has seen virtually no deep archaeological exploration due to long-standing sensitivities and restrictions. This creates a haunting black hole in our historical knowledge. If there are monumental remains, secret royal chambers, or even the tomb of Solomon himself, they may lie protected or trapped beneath those sacred stones. Scientifically, we are at a standstill. We simply have not had the chance to examine the most likely location of Solomon's legacy. Until the day that science is allowed to look beneath the surface, the archaeological evidence will remain limited to the subtle traces found in the surrounding soil. Clay seals indicating a government and silver that hints at a global trade network. The demon's sport, why the legend persists. If the ground refuses to give up a body, why does the world refuse to give up the hunt? Part of what makes this mystery so enduring is the human love for the unknown and the larger than life. When history leaves a void, the imagination rushes in to fill it with secret chambers, hidden maps, and portals that have remained untouched for 3 millennia. The legend of Solomon is not just about gold. It is about power that borders on the supernatural. Ancient accounts suggest a man who eventually felt his control slipping. There is a chilling quote attributed to a figure reflecting on such power. As I continued to do it, I felt it completely abandon me, and I became the sport of the demons I once controlled. This darker, more complex side of the Solomon myth, the idea of a wise man lost in his own vast power, is what keeps scholars and treasure seekers enthralled for generations. However, we must confront a central tension. If Solomon was as wise and wealthy as the ancient texts describe, why has his tomb resisted discovery for so long? Is it because it lies in a location we are forbidden to touch? Is it because it has been hidden by the repeated destruction of the city? Or is it because the tomb never existed in the grand, golden way we have come to imagine? Archaeologists warn that when a story becomes this powerful, sensational interpretations often overlay real, humble finds. Ordinary family tombs are sometimes associated with famous names without evidence, misleading the public into seeing kings where there are only citizens. Yet, The search continues because it is not just about relics or gold. It is about meaning and memory. We are drawn to the whisper of history that calls to us across the ages, promising that even if the king is gone, his wisdom, or at least the mystery of it, remains. The wisdom of the dust, a final verdict. The quiet halls of ancient tombs whisper stories that go far beyond the lives of the people buried within them. Every tomb, every artifact, and every inscription serves as a small key to understanding how people lived, ruled, and believed in centuries long past. As we reach the end of our journey through the limestone hills of Jerusalem, we must recognize that the wisdom found in these tombs is fundamentally different from the legendary wisdom attributed to King Solomon. Instead of seeking mythical knowledge hidden in gold or secret scrolls, archaeologists and scholars find profound insight in the very structure of the tombs, the objects buried, and the words inscribed on stone. Each piece of evidence, no matter how humble, contributes to a broader understanding of the era in which Solomon may have ruled, the real treasures of the Iron Age. While the public often yearns for the splendid empire described in later stories, the archaeological record reveals a lived world rich with connections and human effort. The real artifacts of Solomon's era are not golden crowns, but the objects that define daily life. Inscriptions, carved in ancient Hebrew or Aramaic, these texts identify names and roles, offering a rare glimpse into the social hierarchy of ancient Judah. Pottery and lamps. These styles indicate which regions were in contact and suggest rituals of remembrance used during ceremonies to illuminate the journey to the afterlife. Personal items. Jewelry and amulets reflect beliefs in protection, status, and identity, providing a tactile connection to the people of the 10th century. These items, though simple, hold profound meaning when studied within their context. They reveal a world in flux, shaped by long-distance trade and shifting local powers, where silver flowed and government activity left subtle traces in clay. The enduring whisper of history. The contrast between imagination and reality is finally clear. Iron Age tombs rarely contain gold or secret documents, but they do contain human history in the form of bones and objects that belong to real people. The search for Solomon's tomb is, in the end, not just about gold or relics. It is about meaning, memory, and the whisper of history that still calls to us through the ages. If Solomon was as wealthy and wise as the ancient texts proclaim, his physical presence may have been erased by time, war, or the constant rebuilding of Jerusalem. Yet, his shadow remains in the silver trade, the administrative seals, and the very culture that evolved in the Levant. The stones of Jerusalem do not give up their secrets easily. They demand patience, respect, and the steady hands of those who seek truth in the layers beneath. In a city so full of history, there is always more to discover, and the absence of a verified tomb does not diminish the power of the legend. It simply reminds us that the most enduring monuments are not made of gold, but of the stories we continue to tell and the wisdom we continue to seek.